How we doing, everybody? UFC Thoughts here, and today I'm going to be going over my picks and breakdown for every fight on UFC Des Moines, Sandhagen vs. Figueiredo on May 3rd, 2025. Timestamps in the comments below. Let's get right into it with the first fight of 12. We start with Juliana Miller versus Ivana Petrović. I'll go with Ivana. I'll go with Ivana Petrović on this one. I just really do not want to pick a 1-2 UFC fighter who's also 3-3 professionally. I know that on the UFC it claims that Juliana Miller is 4-3. That's because they include one of the Ultimate Fighter fights. Okay. This fight is going to take place in the clinch, ground, stand-up. This is going to be a 3-level fight. And I think Ivana can beat her in all 3. Juliana Miller, last time out against Luana Santos, which was, by the way, coming up on 2 years ago, didn't look all that great against Luana Santos. Had a lot of pressure early on, was pressuring Luana, throwing big, heavy strikes. She got hit once and then kind of just, like looked sloppy as shit and then got TKO'd standing. This fight can become interesting when it comes to the grappling, because Ivana Petrović will entertain clinching. She will entertain it. She will actively, find it in this fight. She will pressure or try to pressure Juliana against the fence, throw a couple 1s and 2s, kind of back her up, and then go for a clinch, control, knee to the stomach, knee to the thigh, kind of that sort of thing. But Juliana Miller is actually decently good at reversing positions like that. She did that very well against Brogan Walker. But I think Ivana Petrović is a little bit better than Brogan Walker, if I'm being honest with you. I think that on the feet, Ivana has more reach. Juliana Miller, even though she looks decent for the first 3 minutes of a fight. Brogan Walker, she actually dog-walked her, but that's because she was actively getting takedowns and was controlling very well. I think Ivana Petrović, her takedown defense isn't the best, but I think that she can find her way back up from the feet. She doesn't really get controlled too heavily all that much, because she can grapple offensively herself. I just think overall Ivana's a better fighter than Juliana Miller. I think she will probably... How many TKOs does Ivana Petrović have in her career? She has 3. She might be able to find a TKO on the feet or a ground and pound TKO after dropping Juliana Miller. I'm just not very highly on her skills as a fighter. Ivana Petrović. We move to Thomas Petersen versus Don'Tale Mayes. I'll go with Thomas on this one. The train. This is an interesting matchup as well, because, I can definitely see Don'Tale Mayes just brutally chinning Thomas Petersen. Excuse me. But I think Thomas Petersen can just take down Don'Tale Mayes and find a sub or ground and pound TKO. Don'Tale Mayes is shit. He is not good. He is pretty bad. Thomas, listen, I know that they have a common opponent in Shamil Gaziev. Shamil knocked out Thomas in the first round. He smudged Don'Tale to a unanimous decision. I understand that. But if I'm looking at, recent opponents, Don'Tale Mayes, how many fights has he won in his last, 6? Okay, so it's 2. And he's lost to Rodrigo Nascimento, Shamil Gaziev, Walter Walker, and Augusto Sakai. And listen, most of those are by decision. The last dude Don'Tale knocked out was fucking Andrei Arlovsky. Dude. And prior to that, it was fucking Josh Parisian. He doesn't even have all that many finishes, to be honest. He has 4 KOs. I think Thomas has fucking 7. Listen, I know Thomas can get chinned by Don'Tale. He's at an extreme physical discrepancy in this fight. 7-inch reach disadvantage, apparent 5-inch height disadvantage. Don'Tale Mayes is not 6'6". Do not let him keep lying to you guys. I think Thomas... Honestly, Thomas... I don't know if Don'Tale Mayes beats a Jamal Pogues. Does Don'Tale Mayes beat a Muhammad Usman? I'm not sure. I'm not sure he does. And Thomas kind of actually looked good in that fight. He looked decent against Jamal Pogues, who I think is better than Don'Tale Mayes. And Shamil Gaziev, Thomas was low-key chefing up until he got chinned. He got a blast double leg on Shamil Gaziev. He's going to be able to take down Don'Tale Mayes, and I think he does it pretty easily. I don't think Don'Tale Mayes is all that. He has like a 58% takedown defense. He almost has the same amount of takedown defense as Thomas Petersen has takedown accuracy. So I'll go Thomas Petersen. Maybe by decision, but I think he can find a finish on the ground, whether it's a submission or like ground and pound TKO. We move to Gastón Bolaños versus Quang Le. I'll go with Gastón. Not very highly on either of these fellas, if I'm being totally honest with you, but I do believe Gastón Bolaños just has shown more in the UFC to date, has at least a win. You know, he beat Cortavius Romius in a decently competitive fight back in November. He did just a bit more than Cortavius. Cortavius got a lot of takedowns on Gastón, but didn't do a lot of damage with him. And that's exactly what I think could happen in this fight. Quang Le, unironically, has some decent wrestling. We saw that in the Chris Gutierrez fight in the second round. Kind of, I don't know if it was, I think Chris might have actually missed a head kick and slipped like he usually does and ended up on his ass. And then Quang Le kind of just capitalized. He took him down in the first round for sure, though. But I don't know. I don't know if Quang Le is really all that good. Gastón Bolaños last time out against Cortavius actually did have some like solid moments. Landed a lot of good low kicks, and I think that's a weapon that can be used very well against Quang Le. And Quang Le is coming off a KO loss to Zhao Long, which honestly I don't even think is all that bad. Zhao Long arguably beat Chang Ho Lee, who I really rate very highly. But in that fight, again, it was Quang Le kind of being competitive for a little bit, and then at a certain point, the fight just, like, turns against him, and he kind of just, like, it snowballs into him getting hit more and more. I think this fight could really look a lot like the fight that happened last week with Timmy Kwamba and Roberto Romero. Maybe the first round is pretty competitive. Quang Le and Gastón are kind of exchanging shots. Because I think Quang Le early on is going to have a pretty decent speed advantage over Gastón Bolaños. Gastón Bolaños almost is like rusty in a way. It looks like he has rust on him whenever he fights. He kind of like, he's got a very weird fight. He's very technical, but he's kind of slower, which helps with the technique as well, to be honest. But as the fight goes on, I think Gastón Bolaños has the ability to land better shots. And he is improving his grappling defense. Was able to scramble decently well with Cortavius Romius, which I do like to see. And his one loss in the UFC is to Marcus McGee, and he made it to the second round with him, which is something other fighters can't say they've done against Marcus McGee. So I think Gastón Bolaños overall, better showing in the UFC so far. I think stylistically, Gastón Bolaños can counter decently well against Quang Le. Good left hook, good jab to the face that he can land very often. And the low kicks as well. Quang Le kind of just bread and butter striking. Bit faster than Gastón, but he is coming off a KO. I don't know how that's going to play into his psyche, so I'll just go Gastón Bolaños. We move to Marina Rodriguez versus Gillian Robertson. I'm going to go with Gillian Robertson. I think she's going to do what anyone who has success over Marina Rodriguez does, which is take her down. I rewatched the Yasmin Lucinda fight, and I'll be honest, Yasmin Lucinda's striking. Marina Rodriguez was actually doing very well in that department. Dude, the takedowns that this Gilbert Burns lookalike was getting were fucking horrific. She literally got a body lock, tripped the leg out, and then held her down. Gillian Robertson, people talk about her wrestling not being that good. Dude, Marina Rodriguez's takedown defense is shit. Like, it is not good. Like, it is, like, really bad. And Gillian Robertson has been improving her striking for quite some time. The Luana Pinheiro fight, like, she actually implemented a lot of good striking techniques into mixing in her grappling, which I like to see. She's improved her speed on the feet. She has a decent jab, good front kick to the body, good body kick. Marina Rodriguez obviously is going to have the advantage on the feet. That's what she usually has. But she doesn't really hit that hard. She does a lot. She can do a lot of damage, like we saw in the Michelle Waterson-Gomez fight. Which she did have a better performance than Gillian Robertson did, to be fair. But Gillian Robertson, what she does really good is make you fearful on the feet, back up, and kind of just, like, throw caution to the wind, throw a big old meaty right overhand, and then go duck under, grab a single leg, kind of make you bounce for a little bit, and then take you down. And then does that over and over again. Kind of gasses you out. And Marina Rodriguez, I've just seen her get taken down too many times, man. I've seen her get taken down too many times by people I don't even... Dude, Yasmin Lucindo's not good. And I know you could argue Marina Rodriguez did win that fight. I think that you can actually make a very good case that she did. But man, I hate seeing that loss. That is a terrible person to even have that competitive a fight with. Amanda Lemos just absolutely dominated her in the grappling. Like, absolutely dominated. And Yasmin actually did have some success on the feet. Like, Marina Rodriguez isn't like this titan on the feet. I think Gillian can have some success. She'll probably lose most exchanges just due to Marina Rodriguez having a bit of length on her in the reach department and also just a bit of a size advantage. But I think as the fight goes on, Gillian is going to get these takedowns easier and easier and win a very clear 29-28 decision and just kind of advance into the top 10. I think this is actually a pretty easy fight for her. We move to Ryan Loder versus Azamat Bekoev. I'll go with Azamat Bekoev on this one. This can end up very tricky, but I just think that Azamat Bekoev has like a perfect style to combat Ryan Loder. Ryan Loder, really good wrestling and jiu-jitsu chops on him. That's like his whole thing, is because he was a Division I All-American. Excuse me, and he's been mixing in a lot of good jiu-jitsu practice with that as well. His striking is still very green, which is why I'm picking Azamat Bekoev. Azamat Bekoev is very fast on the feet, very good boxing, kickboxing combinations as well. And he's also just like a ball of muscle. Like, look at this fucking guy. He's just like a huge ball of muscles. Ryan Loder got to work with a huge canvas in Robert Valentin, which, by the way, that win is not aging all that great, if we're being totally honest with you. Ryan Loder actually almost got finished in that fight by Robert Valentin. Azamat Bekoev, he's been fighting for way longer than Ryan Loder has. Azamat, he's just kind of had a really good debut against Zachary Reese, a bigger guy who initially he fell over and started throwing subs off his back. Azamat Bekoev was able to fight out of like every attempt that he tried to throw up on him, ended up TKOing him as the fight went on in the first round. I think on the feet, Azamat just is going to have an advantage, and I think he has enough takedown defense and ideal to stay on the feet, defend takedowns, kind of not allow Ryan Loder to get too dominant positions on him. Even if he does like pick him up and slam him down, I think Azamat Bekoev is smart enough not to give up his back or safely get to his feet at that. So I think Azamat Bekoev just overall is going to have better fight IQ, has more weapons on the feet. He's got really solid uppercuts and hooks, good ones and twos, kind of finding his way in, good kicks as well. And when it gets to the ground, he has brutal ground and pound. So if Ryan Loder does make a mistake, which he seemingly does in fights, where he falls off the back or kind of rushes a position and kind of makes a mistake, I think Azamat Bekoev can actually capitalize on those as well. So I'll go Azamat Bekoev. I think he can finish Ryan Loder. I think he can finish. How many? He has like 8 subs, right, on his career. Azamat. He's got 8 submission. I think he can sub Ryan Loder, honestly. I think he can sub him in the first or second round. We move to the featured prelim. Yana Santos versus Miesha Tate. I'm going to go with Yana Santos on this one. I think she beats Miesha Tate. All Miesha can do in this fight is wrestle. That is it. And she might be able to do that, but I think looking back at a performance like Yana Santos versus Ketlen Vieira is actually a really good fight to look back on. Yana Santos actually defended quite a bit, and even then she actually was able to get back up and land some really total strikes of her own. Miesha Tate on the feet, she's just going to be kind of plodding forward, and I think Yana Santos is really a sniper. She doesn't really overextend on anything, is very kind of calculated with what she throws out there, brings everything back to her face. With her hands back to her face, her feet back to the ground, kind of resets very well. And Miesha Tate, she really relies on people swinging big and her ducking under and getting a single leg, mixing into a double, chain wrestling, picking up and dropping you against the fence and kind of grinding her way to top mount, kind of dragging you away. She relies on that. I don't know if she's going to be able to do that against Yana Santos. Miesha Tate, how long was the layoff going into the Julia Villa fight? Because that was her last fight, which was in December of 23. And her last fight prior to that was July of 2022. So she took almost a year, and she took like a year and 5 months off, and now she's taken another year and 5 months off. Or actually, yeah, a year and a year and 5 months. I was about to say. I'm not a huge fan of that. I don't like people taking huge, long layoffs at all. You know what I mean? And I don't know if Miesha, like, I get Yana Santos' grappling isn't that good. I think she has, like a 40-something% takedown defense, which is terrible. But I imagine at this point in her career, this is all she's focused on. And I guess you could say the same thing for my Marina Rodriguez performance breakdown, but I don't think Marina Rodriguez can really improve her takedown defense. I think she's just prone to being taken down. Yana Santos is actually a legend of sport or whatever in Russia with striking and other combat disciplines. Miesha Tate, she's older. She isn't like Julia Villa is shit. She is terrible at fighting. She is terrible. So I think I'm going to take that performance with a grain of salt. Yana Santos coming off a very good win. Not a very good win. A very impressive win. Both of them are coming off impressive wins. Yana Santos looked really good against Chelsea Chandler. Miesha Tate looked really good against Julia Villa. Dude, I think a Chelsea Chandler performance at this point is better than a Julia Villa one. I'm being totally honest with you. I think Julia Villa is that bad. Yana Santos, I think on the feet, it's going to be very one-sided. Miesha Tate can't really strike to save her life at this point. She's very just like running at you, going for takedowns. Yana Santos is very crisp with her body kicks, crisp with her head kicks, kind of just does more as well. It is damage-based at the end of the day. I think she does more damage than Miesha Tate, or throws more at least. We move to the start of the main card. Jeremy Stephens versus Mason Jones. I'm going to go with Mason Jones on this one. I think he can probably finish Jeremy Stephens, if I'm being honest with you. Listen, I'm not a huge fan of Jeremy Stephens at lightweight. From what I remember, he had one fight at lightweight. One fight at lightweight in his UFC career, if I'm not mistaken, and he got subbed in record time. He's also never really been the strongest grappler, to say the least. He's got a 65% takedown defense. Mason Jones will actively implement the clinch game. And I'll be honest with you, Mason Jones honestly did have some success against Loder Klein, which I do like striking-wise. Jeremy Stephens hasn't fought in MMA since 2022. That is another thing to consider. He's only been fighting bare-knuckle boxing and boxing as well. I'm not a fan of that. You haven't been training. God, I'm tired. You haven't been training grappling, and you were never really good at it. And now you're fighting Mason Jones, who is on, what is it, a 4-fight win streak? Outside the UFC? 4-fight win streak against, solid comp. 20-11, 9-2, 13-7, okay, 7-0. He's beating all these guys, finishing 3 of them, went to a decision with Michael Pagani. He beat David Onama. He went to a decision with Mike Davis. You know what I mean? These are decent wins. He beats decent people. Beat a 12-1 Adam Proctor back in 2020. When he was 9-0. I think Mason Jones is really solid. I think he's actually leveled up quite a bit outside the UFC. I'm glad to see that he's back. Jeremy Stephens, he always is going to have the power. He's always going to... I think Mason Jones has a solid chin on him. And he after the Loder Klein fight, I imagine he doesn't make as many mistakes. He's been looking really good recently. Striking is a bit more technical than Jeremy Stephens, in my opinion. Jeremy Stephens is really just throwing prey that something big lands. Mason Jones has good pressure with his striking ability, mixes it in the clinch, throws knees in the clinch, throws good body kicks that can tire out Jeremy Stephens. We've seen Jeremy Stephens lose to body shots before. I think Mason Jones is overall a really solid fighter. And with time off from MMA, Jeremy Stephens is going to come back looking worse. I'll go Mason Jones by second round finish, most likely TKO. Maybe he is pressuring Jeremy on the clinch, lands an elbow, then a knee, and then kind of just starts unloading on him. It turns into a fight where Jeremy Stephens kind of is against the fence, isn't moving, maybe drops to one knee and the fight's over. I think that Mason Jones can overall overwhelm Jeremy Stephens and finish him as the fight goes on. We move to Cameron Smotherman versus Serhiy Sidey. I'll go with Serhiy Sidey. Man, there's a lot of weird matchups on this card, man. I think Serhiy Sidey just does more damage, honestly. I think he's able to do more damage than Cameron Smotherman. Cameron had a very, not dominant, but very clear decision win over Jake Hadley last time out. On the Contender Series, he got chinned by Charalampos Gregorio. Since then, he's been like 4-0, so I think using that matchup's kind of weird. But Serhiy Sidey has the ability to do damage to people where he's so long for the weight class that he kind of just throws a jab out there, throws the head kick, steps in with elbows when people step in, which is something Cameron Smotherman does do, and then follow up with a knee up the middle, and kind of chains those together, kind of just chains those similar combos, jab, and then waits for you to step in elbow, and then he'll throw like an uppercut knee, and then kind of follow you, go to the body in moments. There's moments where Serhiy Sidey really pounds on people, where he kind of, even though he's the longer guy, he is the one walking you down, and you kind of back up into the fence, and you're smaller, and you have to shell up from the barrage that Serhiy Sidey does, and, he does slow down, but he has this undeniable gas tank to just keep throwing something over, like, just keep throwing, don't give up. And I like that about Serhiy Sidey. Cameron Smotherman, listen, he's good. He's very technical when it comes to intermediate striking, kind of you throw, I throw type of thing, where against Jake Hadley, he kind of was just walking him down, checking the low kicks, waiting for Jake to throw a jab, kind of slip off the center line, throw a jab, and then follow up through sometimes in combinations. Besides that, I wanted to see a bit more drive out of him. Jake Hadley is a flyweight. Serhiy Sidey's pretty big for bantamweight. And, his two opponents in the UFC, Garrett Armfield and Ramon Taveras, Ramon Taveras isn't that good, but Garrett Armfield's actually really solid. And I thought that he could have gotten the decision over Ramon Taveras, and I thought Garrett Armfield actually could have gotten the decision win over him. But you can also make an argument for Serhiy Sidey in both of those fights, and that's something I like about him. Serhiy Sidey is always in competitive fights. I think this is a bit of a step down in competition, if I'm being totally honest with you, from a Garrett Armfield, who is a better boxer. And also, Serhiy Sidey, he's very good in creating chaotic moments, and I don't know how Cameron Smotherman is going to do if a chaotic moment happens. Like Cameron Smotherman, for example, if he slips or something, if Serhiy Sidey's able to get him against the clinch and Cameron Smotherman makes a mistake by giving up his back and Serhiy Sidey kind of tries to drag him down or like jumps on his back, because that's something Serhiy Sidey, he's got weirdly long intangibles, and he forces submission attempts on people, like the Garrett Armfield fight. From what I remember, in that first round, Garrett Armfield slipped or somehow ended up near the ground, and immediately Serhiy Sidey locked up a Darce choke and was pulling on it. Serhiy Sidey's able to create chaos, and Cameron Smotherman's a guy that really strives to fight under his conditions. We're going to fight under my terms, and nothing bad's going to happen to me. But besides that, I think that Serhiy Sidey has a better chance to win this fight on damage, and also I just think he has better finishing potential. We move to Montel Jackson versus Daniel Marcos. I'm going to go with Montel Jackson by KO on this one, if I'm being totally honest with you. Daniel Marcos can make this an ugly fight. He definitely can. That's usually what he does to win these fights, is usually makes it somewhat ugly. For the most part, he likes to play from range, but in certain fights like the John Castaneda performance, the Adrian Yanez performance, he's been forced to make it dirty. The Davey Grant fight also, he was forced to kind of make some dirty moments. Montel Jackson is, in my opinion, I think just a better Daniel Marcos. Daniel Marcos is smaller than him, and Montel Jackson has a better range game. He hits harder than Daniel Marcos, and I think he's just a better striker. The grappling is maybe a situation that it can get somewhat strenuous for Montel Jackson. Daniel Marcos, unironically, has some actually solid grappling. We've seen him use that quite a bit, where he's, he might not be winning most of the exchanges on the feet, so he starts shooting takedowns, and he actually gets some good trips. I think Montel Jackson, even though he doesn't fight a lot, He's very defensively sound. That's one. If you want a cool stat about Montel Jackson, in 10 fights in the UFC, he only absorbs 1.42 strikes per minute. That's fucking great. For 10 fights, that is nuts. That is really fucking crazy, especially a guy who does have a almost 10-minute average fight time. He averages almost 2 knockdowns a fight. Now, that is kind of inflated because of the JP Bays fight, but dude, Montel Jackson hits harder than a motherfucker, okay? And Daniel Marcos, even though he is undefeated, he has a sus chin. He does. And Montel Jackson coming off a brilliant performance over Damone Blackshear, TKO'd Ronnie Yaha, he beat Julio Arce, which, none of these guys are like crazy good, but the last time he lost was fucking in 2020. You know what I mean? Like, he's beating a lot of the guys he's fighting. I really like that. The other guy that beat him in the UFC was Ricky Simone, right, in his debut, okay? Montel Jackson has longer arms. He has huge, monstrous fists. He has the same size hands as fucking Francis Ngannou. I swear to God, look it up. And Daniel Marcos, he's got this kind of high guard, but it's like plays around at the chin, kind of drops during moments. And Daniel Marcos, if I'm being honest, looked really beatable against Adrian Yanez. If you got a guy who has more finishing like instincts and has a better gas tank, I think Montel Jackson has both of those things better than Adrian Yanez. I think he finishes Daniel Marcos in either late round 2 or early round 3. Daniel Marcos does slow down, does gas out, and gets caught a lot later in fights. Adrian Yanez almost finished him. John Castaneda unironically hurt him really bad at the end of their fight with a head kick. And Montel Jackson just very methodical on the feet, throws when he needs to, defends when he needs to, is just very sound when it comes to striking. I think he wins this one actually pretty easily, if grappling doesn't play a huge factor in it, which it could, but I don't think it will. We move to Santiago Ponzinibbio versus Daniel Rodriguez. Man, another one. I'll go Daniel on this one. It is very tricky, in my opinion. They're both just old as fuck and just still fighting for some reason. Daniel Rodriguez, in my opinion, I think just has a bit more pop in this day and age. Like, not more pop, but I think that, Santiago Ponzinibbio, in my opinion, just recently his chin has gotten a little bit worse. He seemingly is getting hurt more and more. Carlston Harris dropped him like 3 times in their fight. Of course, he did end up coming back and winning that fight by TKO. Daniel Rodriguez only has 1 loss by TKO, and that was to Ian Gary with a head kick that landed extremely flush. So, and Santiago Ponzinibbio, people talk about Daniel Rodriguez losing the first round to Alex Morono. Santiago Ponzinibbio was losing 2 rounds to Alex Morono until he chinned him. He was losing 2 rounds of that fight and ended up beating him with TKO in the 3rd round. Again, it seems like Santiago Ponzinibbio is relying on like a comeback in a 3rd round, seemingly to get a finish at least. Besides that, every fight that's gone to decision. Besides that, I think Kevin Holland, of course, finished him. Jeff Neal, Michel Pereira, Muslim Salikov are taking to decisions. All split decisions that he's losing. Daniel Rodriguez also has quite a few split decision wins on his resume. I think he literally just won one against Alex Morono, actually. Yeah. He's got 2 split decision wins for himself. Daniel Rodriguez, he beat Li Jingling. He lost to Neil Magny, which was, a competitive fight up until that point. He loses to Ian Gary, loses to Kelvin Gastelum, which Kelvin had to take him down in that fight. He had to chain takedowns to beat him in that fight. Santiago Ponzinibbio, he ain't taking really anyone down. He's more of a, stand up and bang kind of guy, right straight, kind of following you around, jab, left hook, kind of following you around. They're both slower now. They're both old heads. I think Daniel Rodriguez has maybe a speed disadvantage in this fight against Santiago Ponzinibbio. That's seemingly something that Daniel Rodriguez does have in a lot of his fights. But I think Daniel Rodriguez will find more open moments against Santiago, who his guard is lower. He kind of keeps his hands a bit lower. His chin is kind of on a silver platter. If Carlston Harris is able to whack him around twice, I think Daniel Rodriguez will find some moments himself. Maybe win a split decision, 29-28. Maybe the first round, Daniel Rodriguez drops Santiago. Round 2, it's seemingly close. but Daniel lands just a bit more in the third round. Again, kind of close, but maybe leaning more towards Santiago Ponzinibbio. I think they have a lot of similar weapons in this fight. They're just opposite stances. I favor Daniel Rodriguez. I do in this fight. I think that he has more of an ability to chin Santiago than Santiago has to chin him. And that's not because I think Daniel Rodriguez has more punching power, even though he does have some pop. I think that Santiago has just taken quite a bit of damage in his career. And I don't know, like, I hate picking either one of these guys in fights because they're both just so old. But I'll lean Daniel Rodriguez. I might do shit on this card, honestly. We move to the co-main event. Reinier de Ridder versus Bo Nickal. I'm gonna go with... fuck. I'll go with Reinier. This is... Dude, because, like, this is such a stupid fight, man. Like, Reinier de Ridder is going to be so much bigger than Bo Nickal in this fight. He's going to be so much bigger than him. My big worry is that this is such a fight that I can so see Bo Nickal just chinning him in the first round. Because Reinier de Ridder's hands are very slow on the feet. And he kind of, like, leaves his chin on a platter. But Bo Nickal, like, if you're not able to knock out Paul Craig, or, like, hurt him more than you did. Because, like, Bo Nickal didn't even drop him. He hurt him in, like, the third round. But, like, let's keep it a buck. Dude, those rounds were close. Those rounds against Paul Craig were really close. And I don't know if that's, like, blinding me from picking Bo Nickal in this fight. But I think that Bo Nickal in this fight, he's going to be going up against a guy who's going to be shooting takedowns on him. And I don't know, has anyone ever shot a takedown on Bo Nickal in the UFC? No one's shot a takedown on him yet. We don't know how Bo is going to react if someone initiates a takedown on him first. I imagine Bo Nickal will be able to stuff takedowns, but we don't know. Especially when you got a guy like Reinier de Ridder going up against you, who is able to smudge motherfuckers very easily with his size. Now, Reinier could so gas out after the first round, which is, again, another reason why I want to pick Bo Nickal. But I think Reinier de Ridder can finish Bo. And I think he's got such a grappling style that is so egregiously, like, tiring, because he's such a big body to have on top of you, or just in the clinch, kind of draping himself over you, searching for those whizzer throws, those little judo throws, kind of searching for the legs and double legs. Bo Nickal's going to be going up against a guy who can match the submission ability way more than he can, actually. Reinier has better jiu-jitsu than Bo Nickal, but he's also going against a guy who has a bigger body, who can also, like, go for takedowns. On the feet, Reinier's very awkward to deal with. His defense is really pretty bad, but his offense is actually decently good. He's got a decent jab. It takes him a little bit to get going on the feet. If you rewatch the Gerald Meerschaert fight, dude, Gerald was low-key serving him some fists in the first 2 rounds. But again, Gerald gassed out because of the grappling. And Reinier, at a certain point, he started landing solid right hands because he's got these freakishly long arms that people forget about, because he keeps them kind of high and tight and doesn't keep them, like, elongated. He keeps them, like, sheltered up so that when he throws out, people forget that he's got that long-ass extended arm that he can drape over the top like Dreykus does, almost. He's got good front kicks to the body, which, again, I think could play into the cardio of Bo Nickal, kind of gassing him out a little bit more, attacking the body very well. And again, like, I think this is the ranked fighter Bo Nickal can beat. Either way, I'm going to say this before I even do my recap. If Bo Nickal wins or loses, this is a lose-lose situation for him. If he loses to Reinier de Ridder, he lost to Reinier de Ridder, he's going to have to fight his way back into the rankings. If he wins, Bo Nickal's going to he's going to have to fight someone ranked significantly higher than Reinier de Ridder. He's going to get Apollo Costa next. And if I'm being totally honest with you, if I look at the rankings, I don't see Bo Nickal beating anybody else. If I'm being totally honest with you, I think the lower ends of the ranks he can definitely work with. Roman Kopylov comes to mind. Reinier de Ridder, of course, is a matchup he can definitely win. Besides that, dude, I think Bo Nickal's easy money for a lot of these fucking guys in this division. And I think it has to do with the fact that Bo Nickal, one, is very inactive. He doesn't fight a lot at all. And also, I think he's full of himself. I think Bo Nickal is going to be one of those guys that when something doesn't go exactly his way, in more of a way than the Cody Brundage fight went, where he got shoved off and kind of had to fight through, what am I looking for? Humiliation, where he got shoved off immediately, right? He landed on his ass, of course. I think this is such a fight that, Reinier has a good ability to finish Bo Nickal. Bo Nickal might get caught in a submission. It's happened to him before with Gordon Ryan. Of course, I'm not comparing Reinier de Ridder to Gordon Ryan, grapple-wise, but, you know what I mean? Reinier has really good jiu-jitsu, and he's a huge fucking guy. He's got weirdly long limbs. I think if Bo Nickal stays on the feet, it'll be an easier fight for him, but Reinier's not going to keep it on the feet. He's going to force Bo Nickal to fight into a grappling sense. And I think that's where Bo Nickal's going to make a mistake. He's a really good wrestler, very good wrestler, but I do see him making mistakes. I do see it happening. I think Reinier de Ridder, it has the ability to make a guy like Bo Nickal make mistakes, where he thinks he's hot shit on top, he gets his calf lifted up, and then he gets sweeped, and then you have Reinier on top of you. Or Reinier reverses position, threatens submission to get a reversal, like a Kimura from the bottom, or like a... I can't think of the fucking... What's the O name for, a similar, arm hold. You get what I'm saying. I think Reinier de Ridder can have a bit more success in those moments in this fight. I think Reinier thrives in chaos. I don't know if Bo Nickal does. You know what I mean? Bo Nickal, the Paul Craig fight was disgusting. I think Bo can win. I think if there's a ranked fighter he beats, it is Reinier de Ridder. But I think Reinier de Ridder, I think he gets it done. But it's going to be... I can't wait for this fucking fight. We move to the main event. Cory Sandhagen versus Deiveson Figueiredo. I'm going to go Cory Sandhagen by decision. I think Deiveson Figueiredo at bantamweight... Listen... 1, he's going to be severely undersized for Cory Sandhagen. 2, he just doesn't do enough. I think that's something that does need to be mentioned about Deiveson Figueiredo at this division, especially with his last fight. Deiveson Figueiredo, this is going to be his second main event at bantamweight. I think, dude, we have to fucking, throw the... Dude, Deiveson was losing to Chito Vera on the feet. He literally was. Round 2, he dropped, which was solely on the feet. Right? That was a round he did lose because of striking. Round 3, again, he was losing until he knocked down Chito Vera. If he doesn't knock down Chito, he loses to Chito Vera, okay? I love Chito. Cory Sandhagen is just a more methodical striker than Deiveson Figueiredo is. And Deiveson, he just doesn't fucking throw enough. He's landed 53 strikes against Chito and Petr Yan. One of those was a 5-round fight, by the way. And I don't know, Cory Sandhagen's grappling is too good to get controlled by Deiveson Figueiredo. It just is. Deiveson's got really good judo throws, really solid takedown attempts, but I think Cory Sandhagen at this point in his career has evolved enough to where takedown threats don't work on him. It worked against Umar Nurmagomedov because Umar is actually he's got scary finishing potential on the ground, ground and pound wise. Deiveson Figueiredo at bantamweight, I'm just not a huge fan of anymore, at least. Against the top levels of the division, I think Deiveson Figueiredo does really well against the lower ranked than 7. Deiveson does really well. Top 5 guys, I just don't think Deiveson has what it takes to beat them in a fight. He doesn't throw enough. He's got really good power, but he throws only 5 power shots around because his cardio sucks. Deiveson's cardio is not good. He gasses out. He kind of sandbags a lot. Against Cory Sandhagen, sandbagging does not work at all. He's going to pepper you from range. He's going to just do more than you. Cory lands... What's even the output of a Cory Sandhagen? It's not power shots, but dude, he lands 5 significant strikes per minute. You know what I mean? He does just throw more than Deiveson. And again, at the end of the day, you got a guy like Cory Sandhagen who the judges are maybe once or twice he'll throw a flying knee, maybe a spinning wheel kick, and he's just kind of peppering from range, throwing the 1s and 2s. Maybe it lands on the gloves, make a noise. They're holy shit, Cory's doing really crazy work from outside. But in reality, he's just kind of throwing tic-tac shots at Deiveson Figueiredo. It doesn't matter because at the end of the day, Cory's throwing more and landing more than Deiveson Figueiredo. Cory's got a good enough chin to outlast Deiveson in this fight. He's got great cardio at that. And Cory, if we're, like, being objective, dude, his grappling looked really good against Umar Nurmagomedov. It looked really good. It's just his striking didn't back it up. You know what I mean? If he would have done more than feint at range, he might have been able to have the tools to make that an even more competitive decision. You know what I mean? Deiveson, he's smaller. You know, he just doesn't have the frame against a Cory Sandhagen. Cory's going to be significantly bigger than him and also just have better tools on the feet. Deiveson's got some mean, really big, thudding power shots. Outside of that, I think he has terrible weight cuts as well. He's a big fucking guy outside of camp. I think those photos that came out recently, those are older, by the way. Those aren't, like, recent. I figured that out. Because I remember I saw those photos and I was like, what the fuck is Deiveson doing? Because he looks like fucking baby Gronk. But I think that Deiveson still does have terrible weight cuts to the day. But I think Cory Sandhagen is just going to, again, do more. Throw more jabs. Throw more ones and twos. Land on the guard. But then some of them are getting through. And Deiveson has big Deiveson's reactions to punches also throw me off. And Cory's going to be able to low kick in this fight. He's going to be able to throw the low kick a bit more. Set up the question mark kick. Steep to the body. You know what I mean? Without a threat of getting his kick caught and then chain wrestled into fucking oblivion. Right? Deiveson's going to wait in the bushes, wait for his moment, throw a big shot. Cory's going to be able to move out of the way of it, throw 8 shots in a row until Deiveson responds with something. He's going to whiff on it, maybe land it. But I think Cory overall is just a better mixed martial artist, and he's just going to have more volume. And at the end of the day, when you have a guy who's only throwing power shots when he lands like 1 of every 5 shot against a guy who lands, let's say, he's throwing 8 for every 5 Deiveson throws, but he lands 6 or 5 of his 8, and Deiveson's landing 1 or 2 of his 5, those numbers just don't work well for the guy who's only throwing 5 shots. That's just how it works. I'll go Cory Sandhagen by unanimous decision, 49-46. I don't think it's going to be the performance a lot of people want from a Cory Sandhagen at this point in his career. I think it's still going to be competitive, but again, I just think Cory Sandhagen is going to do more at the end of the day, because that's all that matters, is doing more than Deiveson at this point in his career. Because at this point, Deiveson, like, he hits hard. He does hit very hard. But, like, I can't count on that against a guy like Cory who's never been knocked out. Like, I just can't count on that. So I'll go Cory Sandhagen, unanimous decision. I'm UFC Thoughts. These have been my picks and breakdown for every fight on UFC Des Moines, Sandhagen vs. Figueiredo on May 3rd, 2025. My confident picks reside with Mason Jones, Montel Jackson, and in the main event, Cory Sandhagen. My pre-card rating is a 7 out of 10. It's like a really top-heavy card. I think the main card is really solid, outside of maybe the Smotherman and Rodriguez fight, but I think those fights do have the ability to be entertaining just because Serhiy said he can do a lot of damage, and Rodriguez and Santiago might just turn into an old head slugfest. Outside of that, I think the main card is really fucking good. The prelims are pretty wishy-washy. 2 fight nights with crowded events back-to-back. We don't usually get this. We got one last 2 months ago in March with London and Mexico City. I want to see more crowded events. We love this event. We love events like this. I think the main event has the possibility to have some very cool moments, like UFC posts, Deiveson cracks Cory Sandhagen round 4, man. I think like there's going to be some moments like that. At the end of the day, I think this card can be very good. I think it'll be very entertaining for the most part. But yeah, if you like the video, give it a like. If you want to see more content like this, subscribe. I make picks and breakdowns video for every card the UFC has had since UFC Paris from 2023. But yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.